Hi everyone. So this is the video where I'm going to be explaining the assignments that you'll need to be working on moving on into next week. Sorry I didn't have all those up for you when we were in class on Tuesday, but I've got them all up now, and so you can we'll go through exactly what they are. It's going to take a couple of videos to be able to do this. So if you will look at the March 7th folder, you've got the schedule, of course. It says to read. It says it's empty. It says the watch and listen folder is empty, but when you guys see it, it will actually have this video in it. So it won't be empty. And then down in here to complete, you'll need to. It's got the assignment as well as the turn it in link for the project number 1 reflection. We're going to talk about that in just a second. The assignment and turn in link for the project number 2 writing plan. Um, that I'm not sure whether we'll be able to talk about that in this video, but it'll definitely be in maybe the next video, and then the actual assignment for writing project number 2. So let's go through. If you click on that to complete folder on the inside, again, you can see that all those things are there. The instructions for the reflection, the place to submit the reflection, the assignment for writing project number 2, the instructions for writing plan number 2, and the writing plan number 2 project. And just to be clear, if we look at our schedule, we have for the schedule, you're supposed to complete and submit the project number 1 reflection by the end of the week. I'm going to need that by the time we come back to class on Tuesday, and then complete and submit the writing plan number 2. So let's talk about what all of these things are, and we'll begin with the reflection. Um, Let me find the reflection for us. So the reflection right here, the project number 1 reflection essay. So a reflection is an essay where, just like a reflection, you look at yourself in the mirror. For a reflection essay, you're going to look back at your own writing and think about what happened on that project. The reason that I want you to do that is because I don't want you to be in a situation where you're writing something, I mark it up, and then you don't think about it ever again. Because I want you to think about the process that you went through, what you learned, what you did well, what you didn't do well, so that you can learn those lessons for the next time. Otherwise, you're just going in blindly, right? We're going to start the next project, and when we start project number 2, if you haven't looked back at the issues that we had on project number 1, then we might have some issues. So I want you to go back and look at that. So project number 1 reflection essay. So for the project number 1 reflection essay, you need to explore how your project number 1 improved as you move from the writing plan to the rough draft to the final draft. If you feel that your project did not improve or even got worse, you can explore that instead. So that's fine. But somewhere I want to see you thinking about the progression. As you move from that writing plan, first started thinking about things, and you did a rough draft, and I made some comments on that, told you to change. What kind of changes did you make? So you went through a number of steps, and I want you to go back and think about those steps, okay, and see if things improved, if they did, in what way. And again, be honest. If you really think they didn't improve, and if you think they didn't improve because I didn't do my job well, right? If you think that I didn't explain these things to you well, feel free to say that because that's important. If you feel as if I'm not giving you the right information, that's important for me to know because then I can say, well, let's talk about how I can give you that information better. So let's really look at exactly what happened as we were moving through and begin to think about how we can make sure that things go better for the next project, which you're going to start working on. So, and again, first I want you to finish up with this with the reflection essay before you start on number 2. So that's what I want you to do. Think about how things improved as you move from the writing plan to the rough draft to the final draft. As I say down here, this essay, like all essays, must have a specific thesis that states exactly how your project improved or exactly how or and why it didn't improve. And so you'd have to answer these kind of questions. Is your thesis clear? Did you more clearly focus on and explain the symbols? That should say metaphors, sorry, because we talked about metaphors. Metaphors. Did you provide better evidence to support your thesis? Did you improve your grammar and formatting? Whatever it is, If you feel that your project is improved in more than one way, be as specific as possible about what those ways are. Don't do not simply say my project improved in a number of ways, right? I don't want that, because I want to make sure that from the beginning you are telling me what you're going to be talking about. And realize what I'm doing here on some level with this essay is getting you to write another essay, right? Obeying the same basic rules that we had before, making sure that you've got a clear thesis, except instead of being about a poem, this essay is going to be about your actual writing process. So make sure you have a specific thesis. You'll also need to provide specific evidence to support your claims, right? You have to prove your thesis. This evidence must consist of the specific marks you received in the rough and final draft rubrics. So look in the rubrics. I gave you specific marks on your thesis, metaphors, supports, organizations, all of those categories, and you can go through and see, did you improve as you moved from the rough draft to the final draft, right? If you did, you can say, oh, I'm doing better, right? If you didn't, then you can talk about why that's the case, right? So include that. Have quotes from your papers. And so if you want to talk about the fact that you feel that your thesis improved, you can you can quote the thesis from your writing plan, the thesis from your rough draft, and the thesis from your final draft, and actually talk about how that thesis improved as you went through, right? And so having those quotes in there, just like you would have had quotes from from the poem when you're going to be using that to support your thesis. So you must have quotes and rubric scores, which means you have to look back at all three assignments. So go back and look at that. Look at my comments that I put in there, anything that I put in the click here to see my comments, anything in there to show that what that progress has been. Again, if there's no progress, talk about that and talk about why you think there was no progress, right? Be clear about that. You should also discuss any conversations or email exchanges that you and I had. If we talked over the phone, or when we were in the computer classroom, or I just mentioned some things over over email. Whatever it is, if we had any kind of conversation, talk about that. Were those things helpful to you, or were they not, right? And so be very clear about that. If you feel that we had a conversation and you left that conversation more confused than when we started, talk about that and explain that's maybe part of the reason why that happened. Because again, we want to look at that honestly so we can figure out for number two, let's make sure that you are getting the kind of information you need to make sure that your assignments are improving. Feel free to also discuss any personal difficulties that might have made the project difficult to complete. So if you had to take on extra shifts at work, you had to take care of a sick family member, whatever it is that happened, you can talk about that. So we just want to understand what is it that goes into the writing process here, what kind of challenges you might have had, what kind of things make it possible for you to succeed, what things make it more difficult for you to succeed, so that again, as we're planning moving forward for the next two essays that we have in this semester, you can as we're planning forward to that, then you can plan ahead. You can think about what kinds of things you need to be aware of. As I say down here, this essay should be well organized like any essay. That means that it should be divided into paragraphs, and that each paragraph should be focused on one particular idea, right? So divide it up, organize it. So again, part of what I'm doing here is getting you to write another essay. The best way to learn how to write is to write a lot. So here's another place where you're going to write something. There's no specific length requirement, but I will grade this essay on how thoroughly you explore what happened for your project, and I think that would be difficult to do in less than a page and a half. Okay, to really talk about this. Try and think about that as a minimum. So that's what we're looking for the project number one reflection essay. That's the first thing that you need to do moving forward. After you complete that, then you can go ahead and begin working on your writing plan for project number two. So we'll have that, and in the next video, I'll talk about what we'll have for that writing plan.